I'm certainly not sitting here saying they're losing no money off everything that's going on around the RSNs. But that being said, I guess I look at teams like the Diamondbacks and the Padres who have lost their TV deals. Padres are top 5 in payroll. Diamondbacks have added a bunch of players this winter already. And I know you're not covering the Mariners beat anymore, but do you feel like they truly have no money to spend? Because I guess from where I'm sitting, just as a fan and somebody who does a podcast, it's hard for me to believe they truly don't have any resources to spend.
No, I mean, that's a very good question. And I will fall back on this. So for years, I have written, and you go back, you read my stuff, and it's been pretty consistent on this, that sports fans have to beware of what they're buying into as sports fans. And what I mean by that is this is exactly why fans should be very hesitant when teams come to them asking for public money, when they come asking them to build a stadium, when they come asking for money to maintain that stadium, and all kinds of other stuff. When it comes to public dollars, you got to be very leery of that, because those teams are then going to turn around and they're not going to spend any of their own money to make their teams better. They're only going to spend the money that other people give them and that other people make for them. And that's been the way pro sports have operated for generations now. They will take all the money they can from everybody else. And privately behind the scenes, these teams will tell each other that that's why we became billionaires in the first place. We're not stupid. We're not going to reach into our own pockets and fund a team when the going's tough. We're going to get everybody else to do it. And so I'm not saying the Mariners have done that consistently, but look, they got a stadium that was 2/3 subsidized by taxpayers. They then went back and got another $100 million plus commitment from those taxpayers about 5 years ago to continue the ongoing maintenance of the supposedly public facility that was built, Safeco Field, now T-Mobile Park. The problem is the Mariners have been the ones reaping the profitable gains from that ballpark since it was built. It's not the taxpayers that are making that money. And so there is this sense in Seattle that the Mariners owe people something, that they owe it to themselves to reach into their pockets and fund the bill. And we can have that philosophical discussion, and it has been held by economists, sports economists far more intelligent than me when it comes to money. But that's at the crux of these things. And so when we look at Seattle, and you've got Chris Hansen wanting to build an arena right next to the ballparks, and he wants $250 million in public bond funding to do it, my first reaction would be to tell people, well, we've got to look and see whether there's an alternative situation where we can commit fewer, I should say, public dollars than that. And they did. Lo and behold, they actually looked, and they found a hockey group that was willing to come in. The Oakview group came in, and they spent $1.15 billion of private money on it. So we're not on the hook. If the Kraken go belly up, something happened. I mean, taxpayers aren't on the hook for that. In the Mariners case, it's a much more public trust. And so there's people that believe that, yeah, John Stanton, and all his friends who put together are worth probably multiple billions of dollars, should be able to reach into their own pockets and fund some stuff and when the going gets tough. But that's not how pro sports works. So as fans, you have to be very careful when you're considering big public investitures in pro sports, because this is the reality of the situation. Now, that said, if you're running a business, I mean, I've seen the valuation of Root Sports, by people, again, more intelligent than me, saying, I know that for the purposes of their sale a few years back to Stanton's group, I think it was valued at $170 million or something like that for the purposes of the sale. Now, that doesn't mean that that's what it's worth. I've heard people say it's worth $300 million. Some have said it's worth even $400 million based on a subscriber per subscriber rate. Now, that's gone down clearly because subscribers are logging off of RSNs like nobody's business. But I mean, even if it's a $200 million asset still, or a $100 million asset, that's a lot of money to just write off your books. And that's problematic, especially if that's the way you've been funding it. Now, do you want to have a cash call if you're the Mariners and go to all your other owners and say, hey, we told you folks you weren't going to have to reach into your own pockets, but now we need $5-10 million a piece from each of you for this year so that we can fund the shortfall in our TV revenue? I don't see that happening. That's just not the way pro sports work. And so fans are upset about that, obviously. Fans are getting a real education right now about professional sports. This ain't college, folks. This ain't high school. These are professional sports teams. Money is all that matters in professional sports. And so you might think this is how our team should operate. This is why are they doing this? Why didn't they sign Ohtani? Why are these? Because it's professional sports. And we can look at the Padres. Padres did go out and offload a big asset to the New York Yankees just last week because of their situation with their TV shortfalls. When you're talking about baseball, I mean, baseball teams, I don't know their media rights off the top of my head, but a lot of those teams are bringing in $70 million plus a year in TV money. If that's going out the window, you can't just replace that kind of shortfall overnight. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. That's a lot of money we're talking about. And so I think the Mariners do have something legitimate to complain about here with their finances. I think they have something legitimate to be concerned about. That said, and I know I'm talking a lot, but there's a lot going through my head here. But that said, when they were making a lot of money hand over fist from the RSN, from Root Sports, you didn't exactly see them jacking payroll up to 200 million plus. So, you take a little bit with a grain of salt. I think they have a reason to be concerned. Could they be overstating their concerns just a little? Look, the history of the Mariners has been to be cautious financially. They've been very cautious as an organization when it comes to fiscal spending. And I think that's been proven year after year with the Forbes valuations and the lack of debt load that they've carried. I think that's the way they operate. And so now it's being exposed to a point that the fans don't like. And, it's easy for me to tell other people how to spend their money. And that's the way the Mariners have chosen to do business.
Were they making more money before they added on the Blazers and the Kraken on Root Sports?
I don't know. I'm not privy to their financials. I know they were doing very well. So the part when they bought their RSN a decade ago, the big sales piece of that, the big attraction for baseball teams to own their own RSN is it's a license to print money. And why I say that is because teams typically have to share all their revenue from media rights with the other Major League Baseball clubs. It's written in their in their agreement with each other. And so the difference is when you own your own RSN, as the Mariners do, there's a calculation that's made as to what your media rights are worth. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the Mariners were worth, maybe $80 million, something like that. I could be wrong about that, but they assign a figure to it. So after that, any money the Mariners make beyond that, they get to keep. And they get to keep it because they just run it through their TV network. They say, no, this is all network revenue. It's all network generated. It's got nothing to do with our MLB media rights. And that's the way it works. The Yankees made hundreds of millions of extra dollars on that kind of stuff through the Yes Network. And so that's how good teams are able to stay good because spending is not an issue for them. And I said teams don't like to spend their own money; they like to spend other people's money. So as long as they're generating it through the network, they got lots of money. So it was probably very reasonable to expect the Mariners to have spent more in the years that things were going well. With Root Sports, definitely up until right before probably the Kraken came around, right before the pandemic, I should say. And so the pandemic hurt a lot of sports teams because it knocked the content off the air, and so they have to absorb those losses as well when you're the Mariners. So I couldn't tell you whether they were making more. I would say they were probably making more than when the Kraken came on because the whole landscape around sports changed after the pandemic. So. I would say their heyday with the network probably would have been like 2013 through 2019 for the Mariners. But again, that's somebody that's not been privy to any of their private filings or discussions or anything like that. But I would say things were going pretty well because you did see them lift payroll incrementally throughout that time until they started going in their rebuilding phase. But they were spending for a while a little bit more, probably not as much as I would have liked or as some fans would have liked, but they were spending more.
Could it be as simple as them in a year or 2 years just folding the network and liquidating it? Is it that simple? And do they get any extra money to spend out of that?
I guess the answer would be who they would. I don't think they would sell it to anybody. I don't know who's in the market right now to buy an RSN because the model's collapsing. So if they fold it, if they don't have any. If they don't have any obligations to anybody, if they don't owe people money when they're folding it, if they don't have any long-term advertising that's committed to the platform, then I guess theoretically they could fold it and they'd be in a better place. The problem is they probably do have some deals that are longer term. Look, the big thing I would think to cost cut. I mean, if you were to get the Kraken off the air and you were to get the Blazers off your airwaves. That would probably save them a lot of money in the short term. As far as folding it up, how much that would cost, and whether they would make any money on that, I'm not in a position to say. As a layman, my first thought would be no, because you still have to show your games, right? You still have to make money for your games. So how are you going to make money off your games? Where's your TV revenue going to come from? Are you going to jump in with MLB into a broader venture? And how much is MLB going to pay you as opposed to what you could have made before? So, I don't know that there's a situation where they would really come out ahead in the short term. I would think if it is going to be better for them, it would be a very long-term prospect. I don't see this. If you're asking the question, I don't see the situation resolving itself in the next season or two to the point where all of a sudden they're going to have this influx of cash to spend on people. If they're not spending it now, I don't see it being a scenario where they're going to have the cash to spend in 2 years from now. But again, I'm not privy to all these things behind the scenes. This is just me making educated guesses based on what I've seen and based on how they've operated until now. Now, if I can just make another point, when I talk about hockey teams going and doing free broadcasts, it's a lot easier for hockey teams to do that. So if you're the Kraken and you're pulling in, I don't know, let's just say 20 million from Root Sports, can you get close to that through selling on TV? Maybe so. I'm told the Vegas Golden Knights had a TV deal worth about 14 million, 15, maybe just south of 15 million. Wasn't the greatest TV deal before Warner Brothers walked away. So that's not a huge amount of money compared to a baseball team. So yeah, you could throw your stuff for free on the air and probably get something close to that, or even make more than that. It's different with a baseball team. If you're talking about 100 million in media rights, you can't just replicate that overnight by putting your stuff on free TV. That's why this is a very difficult time if you're the Mariners, because you have to come up with some solutions. If you don't want to reach into the owner's pocket, which no sports owner really wants to do, you don't want to reach into your own pocket, your own bank account to start funding the operations of these things, then you got to figure out a way to make that media rights money back. And it's not like you can wave a magic wand and have that happen. And this is something sports fans have to come to grips with too. It's okay to brag about cord cutting and, oh yeah, I would never pay for this. It's so antiquated. They have to figure it out. Well, they're trying to figure it out, but you can't just, like I said, wave a magic wand and create 100 million a year in TV revenue. So, cord cutters have played a part in this. And I don't blame them. I'd want to get the cheapest deal I could get too, but getting that cheap deal and then expecting your baseball team to go out and spend, 500 million on a player for the next 10 years, that doesn't necessarily go hand in hand. And so, a lot of sports fans aren't going to want to hear that. So what I would suggest is, if you're going to save your money by cutting the cord and doing all that stuff that I would do as well, maybe don't brag about it so much, and then expect to yell at your sports team when they don't go and get your favorite player afterwards, because these are all real life problems. And it's not like they're incompatible with each other. They're all very compatible with each other, and one feeds off the next. So baseball has to find now its next revenue generator that's going to sustain them through the next 20 years, because the regional sports network thing, I think it's just about run. It's just about hit its apex, and it's pretty much going to go away.
So based off that last part of your statement there, Geoff, the last question I have for you is, and maybe you'll just have to take your best guess at this, but how long do you think Root Sports has left?
As long as the Mariners want to keep it going, I would say a year. I'm just throwing it out there. Sure. I mean, I've heard they could be done by the end of next year, and next year is coming up really fast. So I would say, and a year even seems too long. I would say through the next baseball season, maybe they want to, if they want to put the Mariners on the airwaves through their own in-house broadcast of Root, maybe minus the basketball team and minus the Kraken. I could see that happening, and then figure out a long-term solution while you're in the process of doing that. That's again, John Stanton though came out and said, he told our reporters Ryan Divish and Adam Jude last Friday when they wrote their story. He said that he's going to have an answer for some Root Sports staffers about staffing and about possible layoffs by mid-January. So that tells me they're on the cusp of making a major decision as to how they're going to proceed for the next baseball season. So I would think, they're probably wrestling with that question right now. How long do we want to keep this going? How much money is it worth to try to do our own in-house broadcast if we're only going to do it for a year or two? So we'll see. So you're asking my opinion. I'd say I'll give it a year, and then I think Root Sports might go away.